Two Nebraska members of Congress are partnering up to propose a bill meant to stabilize foster care services back to the floor. Senator Deb Fischer and Representative Don Bacon are reintroducing the bill. It would give kids who are in foster care but don't yet have a foster family better access to food and clothing. The bill would authorize $3 million in grants that would be used to hire more foster care staff and to buy those necessities. A breaking update tonight.